This BMW 335i was destined for the scrapyard, but then I bought it. Previously, I bought this burned 335i to rebuild, but after repairing the biggest damage, we found out that the engine was blown, and this car was just a massive insurance fraud. But at that point, it was too late to turn back, so we rebuilt the blown engine and got it driving again. After doing all this work, we are the closest to the finish line than we have ever been. The car is finally running and it looks like a car again. Well, not a pretty one, but a car. Firstly, the bumper's seen better days, the lights are cracked. The quarter panel, well, needs some paint and bondo. There's a scratch on the trunk. Well, the bumper is different color, and there's also damage on the right quarter panel. That's annoying. And the interior looks like a complete mess. But it's finally time to do something about it, so let's pull this car into the garage and start working. Now off with the wheels, and then I will remove the bumper. Then we will remove the shock together with the shock top mount, and then we will use a wire wheel brush to clean up the complete inside here. I also picked up brand new sway bar links, so I decided as I'm in here to remove it, and as always it was rusted, so I had to cut it off. I'm also cleaning up the roof of the trunk. Since there are some smoke marks on the roof, we will repaint it, so I'm just cleaning it up with a wire wheel brush. Now the first thing I'm doing, I'm using 180 grit orbital sander to sand down the repair area and the places we're gonna use body filler on. Unfortunately, there are a few dents on the new quarter panel, so we'll need to repair these as well. Here I'm wiping the surface clean with silicone remover and making the surface ready for the body filler. Now I'm trying to press the body filler downwards as hard as possible, but fiberglass body filler is very hard to use, so it's not that easy to work with. And now I am blocking down the filler with 120 grit sandpaper to make it nice and flat. So now I sanded down all the bondo. This blue bondo, what we can see, is fiberglass bondo, fiberglass putty. This panel in the middle, let's say here, it flexes, so that's why you use fiberglass. By the way, in here I have the greaser. Now here I have universal putty, the normal one. That is because, well, this one is easier to work with. Fiberglass is more like harder to shape. Since I am a beginner in body work, I will need to repeat this step many times, so I will apply body filler, sand it down with 120 grit and do it multiple times. After doing it a few times, I found out that the best strategy to do this is to use an orbital sander to firstly sand down the body filler, and when you see you're getting close to the body lines, you go over to the block sander and that goes a lot quicker. I wasn't originally gonna paint the trunk, but it did get a pretty deep scratch in it under transport, so I guess we'll need to do it anyway. So now I will use some brake cleaner and clean out the inner wheel arch. Then I will paint everything in here with Brunox, the epoxy primer. And then we will put some Bondo here to make it nice. And then after that we will paint it with the normal primer. This dark material here is just old seam sealant. That's still good, so we're not gonna remove it. So now I applied filler and blocked it with 120. Then I applied more filler. So I think we are done with applying filler. So now I will swap over to a 240 grit block and just block it down one more time to make it even more flat. Now using the same 240 grit, I will sand down the rest of the places we repaired. So here, here, and also in the door jamb. Basically anywhere we used body filler. Now I will start working on the bumpers. So firstly I need to remove the front bumper, then remove the fog lights, grills and strip it down completely, and then sand it down together with the rear bumper. So now there is this little corner broken on the bumper. So I'll try to heat it up, melt it in place, and then we will use Bondo to repair it fully. It's incredibly ugly right now, but I think it's close enough that we can repair the rest. Now the rest of the bumper I think is okay. There are massive scratch there, hole under, but I think I can sand it, get it close enough. Well, the bottom it gets scraped anyway all the time, so I'm not really too worried. Then there's a scratch there. This side, good. And the rear bumper here, and that's mostly the biggest damage in this corner. But we already made it close enough, so we will fully repair it with body filler together with the front bumper. There's also damage on this side of the quarter panel, but I did sand it down with 180 at first, and then I went with 320 together when I did the final step. Because here we don't need any Bondo, there was just paint a bit destroyed from the heat, but you can see it cleaned up perfectly. You can't feel any change in surface. Here we'll put a bit of seam sealant. You can see there is some here. In here we're gonna sand up. We also need to clean up the rear lid, the trunk shelf. I added some bando here, even though you can't see it, so this is smooth now. All this here is gonna be seam sealant. Down here, all this here. Wheel arch came out perfect. Very happy how it came out. You can't feel anything with your hand. It's gonna look pretty damn good. And these little dents that was here, they were minor, but not minor enough that you wouldn't see it after painting. So that's why I put a bit of bond over them. You can't feel it now at all. Up here also, it came out perfect. Can't feel anything. I will start sanding down the bumper. Now we'll start sanding down the bumpers with 180 grit, I think. We also need to remove the diffuser on the rear bumper. I do have another one. Here I'm sanding down the damaged area with 180 grit. Well, basically the whole bumper. And I'm using special body filler that's made for plastic to repair the damage. So now I sanded down the whole bumper. I cleaned up the damage as best as I could. Well, I still need to do a bit more, but for now it's good. This was a complete pain to fix because both of the corners were like messed up and missing. All this came out perfectly. You can't feel anything. Here maybe a bit more work. I also sanded the whole thing down with 320 orbital, I think. This bumper will need to prime the whole thing. Rear bumper, I think we'll get away with only priming the damage. Trunk, only the damage. And this whole thing as well. But now I cleaned up the shelf a bit with the Y-wheel brush. And I do have some paint in box. So I will paint the shelf and the inside the trunk where I need to now. Just so we can cover the inside. And then only we need to do the outside when we're gonna paint. After cleaning the surface up, first I used primer, then base coat and then clear coat on the surface. After we finish using filler and then blocking it down with 120 and 240 grit, I used an orbital sander with 320 grit sandpaper to sand down all of the bumpers and the repair area on the car to make it ready for primer. And then I used Scotch-Brite to scuff off the hard axis areas where I just couldn't reach with the orbital sander, and to scuff off all the corners and little pieces, because everywhere where you paint has to be scuffed up. Then we're massing up the car and then degreasing it thoroughly to make it ready for primer. I'm not really too worried about dust right now, since this is only primer, but anyway, I put down a bunch of water on the floor so when I walk, dust doesn't start floating around in the air. Step number 1, plastic primer. So there are some bare plastic showing some places, such as here. So that's why I have the plastic primer, and then we're gonna use the acrylic primer to put probably 3 coats of it. Two-component filler. This is like acrylic primer. Then this primer is supposed to be 4:1 with 4 parts filler and 1 part hardener, plus 10-20% thinner. Then I use these cups. I use 4:1, where it says right there, and then I put it until number 6, let's say, of primer, and then up to 6 with thinner. Then apparently I need also 10-20% thinner.
Oh, I got a message on Instagram.
I don't know if you can even see it, but there's so much fog in there. When we are gonna need to paint the base coat and the clear coat, we need to set up some kind of a ventilation. But now I'm pretty happy the way it came out. The trunk, I only primed 2 corners as well. There was a bit of damage here and there, which is now completely gone. The rear bumper, pretty awesome. And the front bumper came out way better than I expected. This bumper was toast. It was so bad. I didn't really realize that this bumper was so bad before I started working on it. I'm very happy the way it came out. You basically can't tell that there's something done to it. Well, you can a bit, but then there was a bunch of damage here that I repaired. Also here, but everything came out very nice. Only one I can see that is not absolutely perfect is this body line here. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but you can see right there it's not perfectly straight. I think there was a dent that I maybe repaired and maybe sanded too much and the body line moved. At this part of the bumper is where I started spraying and testing. I tried to do it on the paper, but you couldn't really see it. And at the start, it was not spraying that nicely. Maybe it was me who couldn't adjust the gun since it's my first time painting basically. At this place, it's not really the best, but I think when we are gonna sand it, it's gonna be very nice. The car as well, I painted everywhere where I wanted. I also painted under here, as you can see. Nice and perfect. It's gonna be awesome. So actually this gun that I use for priming, it's actually a very cheap one for around 250 krones, which is around like 20 euros. But I did get a good one for clear coat and base coat, 1.3 millimeters. So this should be very good to spray with. Now I'm using seam sealer to cover up all the places where the panels join, just the same as it does from the factory. When I was sanding down the primer, I did sand through it a few spots, so I had to re-prime some of the places again. Now I set up these little ventilation pipes that go on these little motors that connect to the battery. So now I covered up everything I thought of to set up plastic here, everywhere. That's the most that I can do. Dude. I'm just gonna go turn on the fans real quick. So now I finally managed to set the gun up, 2 bars. Now we need to adjust how much air it gives. So you do it by screwing this one. So you're gonna start blowing air and tighten it until it's tight. Now there was resistance, even though I could turn more when I have not pressed the button. Now to adjust the spray pattern, how wide it sprays, you just go full wide open and go a little bit in, a quarter of a turn to make it, to round off the edges. First I need to mix up this paint. Now this paint you're supposed to mix with thinner 1:1. So this medium thinner 1:1. Now I'm just gonna test how it sprays. Now I have these tack cloths. They're like sticky wipes, and so they basically absorb all the dust. So now I painted everything and everything is dry. It came out pretty bad. Look at all those runs. That's crazy. The paint people are probably cringing at me. So the base coat laid down perfectly, but the clear coat I had some trouble with. The gun wasn't adjusting that good, so I couldn't really adjust it properly, and well, I can't really paint. So I got a bunch of runs. The bumpers as well, a few runs. I could say the bumper, rear bumper and trunk okay. The quarter panel, I don't know, we might need to redo everything or at least re-clear it. Here it came out pretty good, but so I'll probably need to re-clear it, or well, first I'm gonna try to sand all of this and then try to polish it. Then in the future maybe we need to re-clear it. I need to learn how to do this properly. But oh well, I guess if you don't try, you don't fail. There was so much dust that I couldn't film at all. It was just basically too bad to do anything. So sorry for that. So the paint job did not come out that good. I'm not satisfied at all. I think it's a combination of badly adjusted gun, because it was like leaking at the adjustment screw, and also it was very foggy in here, so you can't really see what you're painting, even though I tried to set up as many lights as I could. So I think we will need to get this repainted. Since there are many runs, well, runs you can basically remove with a razor blade. You just cover up the corners and you use it to scrape away the run. Then you sand it with 1500, 2500 and 3000 grit. Then you polish it. Then the run most of the time goes away. But there are some other spots that I'm not satisfied of. So I think we'll need to get it done again. Well, I think the bumpers and the trunk we will keep because it came out pretty good. There are a few runs, but I think it's gonna be okay. You can see, for example, here the paint came out perfect. Look at that mirror finish. But the runs I can't really repair now because the clear coat is still very soft. So I will try to remove it with a razor blade and then polish it, as well as the orange peel in some spots. So I think most of this is gonna clean up pretty nicely. There are some spots that is not gonna be perfect. So, well, at least for now, the jams, everything inside is painted, so it's good enough to put together and get it inspected and all legal. Some of you people are probably painters and you're probably cringing at my job here, but I'm not gonna hide it. It didn't come out that good and I'm gonna share it with you guys so you can, I don't know, learn from my mistakes. But at least the jams, everything in here is good. So we can put this together. Then when the time comes to paint it, we can just paint the outside. We don't need to do under, inside, wheel wells and stuff like that. So next episode, we will start the rebuild again. So we need to resolder all the cables, then remove the front seats, then fully wash the inside the car because it's filthy, very filthy. Then we will also start assembling everything inside the trunk, all the cables, everything, then under heat shields. I'm thinking maybe it's enough to basically give it a light sand with the 1000s or 800s orbital and then re-clear it because the base came out very good. So the base is, you could say, perfect. Maybe it's enough to re-clear it. I don't know. Because for example here, it came out incredibly nice. No orange peel, nothing. There are of course dust some, but it's still not polished or anything. The trunk also came out pretty decent. So if you set up better ventilation and good lighting, I think we can probably do it again, but I don't know yet. But now I am excited to finally start putting the car back together. So thanks for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. And I hope to see you in the next one.